confused by some of the things that we hear as to the basis of an investigation. Now, Mr. Comey, if an individual attends a meeting with a foreign leader, is that enough to open a counterintelligence investigation?
Without more that somebody met with somebody? No.
No, okay. Without more, then, if they had their picture taken with a foreign leader, is that enough?
It would depend upon where they were, who took the picture.
Well, assume that they're in the foreign country and in that foreign leader's government offices or facilities. If they're having a picture taken with them, is that enough to open a counterintelligence investigation?
It would depend.
On what? I mean, because I'm saying if there's just a picture. Because I can tell you certainly there's lots of people who've had lots of pictures.
Yeah.
Is it enough that a person has just had their picture taken with a foreign leader at the foreign leader's government official offices or place of residence?
As I said, it would depend. Did the person sneak over to the foreign country and meet them clandestinely? Was the picture reveal something else about the relationship? It's just hard to
Let's
answer.
say it's not clandestine. Let's say it's open, that the person has attended an event and has gone over to meet with the foreign government official, and is at their foreign government official facility or their official residence, has a picture taken, and has no intention of covertly being present with the foreign person. Is that picture enough to open a counterintelligence investigation?
Tricky to answer hypotheticals, but I think my reaction to that is that doesn't strike me as enough. Now, I know your next question is going to be deeper into hypos.
No, I'm not getting deep into the hypos. These are pretty straightforward. What if you're paid, to attend a conference in a foreign country, and you're paid to attend that conference not directly by the foreign government, but nonetheless, payment does occur for you to attend a conference. Certainly, we know President Bill Clinton attended many such conferences and spoke and received payment. Is receiving payment by attending to speak at a conference, again, it's not covert. It's open. They're attending to speak at a conference. They receive payment for the purposes of speaking. Is that enough to open a counterintelligence investigation?
I can't say as I sit here. It would depend upon a lot of different things.
If you had no other information or evidence other than the fact that they attended, is that enough for you, for the FBI, to open a counterintelligence investigation of a private U.S. citizen?
I can't answer the hypothetical because it would depend upon a number of other things.
Well, I limited it to where there would be no other things, Mr. Comey. I said only. If the only information that you had was that they had attended an event in which they were paid, which was a conference and it was not covert, is that only sufficient information to open an investigation against a private U.S. citizen?
Right, who paid them? Did they disclose it? What did they discuss when they were there? Who else was sitting with them? There's lots and lots of other circumstances that make that, even that simple seeming hypo, difficult to answer.
Well, let's say that they've traveled to a foreign country and they openly traveled, wasn't covert. Is traveling there enough?
Just traveling around the world? No.
Okay, well, I'm very concerned, Mr. Comey, about the issue of how an investigation is open and how we end up at this situation once again, where Mr. Clapper, head of the Director of National Intelligence, just said that when he left, there was no evidence of collusion. And yet, as Admiral Rogers said, we're sitting now where the Russians' goal is being achieved, of causing a cloud or undermining our election process. So I certainly hope that you take an expeditious look at what you have undertaken, because it affects the heart of our democracy. Mr. Comey, I have a question concerning classified information. Now, I know that if I attend a classified briefing and I receive classified information and I go and tell someone that classified information, if I leak it or I release it, that I've committed a crime. But what if someone goes to a classified briefing, walks out of that briefing, and openly lies about the contents of that briefing? It's unclear to me what happens then. And it's important because, as you know, this committee, and certainly both of you gentlemen, have handled a lot of classified information, and recently, more recently, the purported classified information is put out in the press. The Washington Post, the New York Times reports information, and you know, and I know, and we all know, having handled classified information, that some of that information is not true. Are the sources of that classified information, if they come out and lie about the content of classified information, have they committed a crime?
Really interesting question. I don't think so. If all they've done is lie to a reporter, that's not against the law. If they've done it, I don't want to break anybody's hearts with that, but that's not against the law. But it is not, and the reason I'm hesitating is I can imagine a circumstance where it's part of some broader conspiracy or something, but just that false statement to a reporter is not a crime.
And I just want to underscore that for a second, because I agree with you. I think it's no crime. And so every reporter out there that has someone standing in front of them and saying, oh, I'm taking this great risk of sharing with you U.S. secrets, besides them purporting to be a traitor, are committing no crime if they lie to them. So all of these news articles that contain this information that we know is not the case are being done so at damage to the United States, but without the risk of a crime. And my next aspect of your question to you, Mr. Comey, is this. What is the obligation of the intelligence community to correct such falsehoods? Some of this information that we read in the Washington Post and the New York Times is extremely false and extremely incendiary and extremely condemning of individuals and certainly our whole system. What is your obligation, Mr. Comey, to be that source, to say, I can't release classified information, but I can tell you it's not that?
That's a great question. There's a whole lot out there that is false. And I suppose some of it could be people lying to reporters. I think that probably happens. But more often than not, it's people who act like they know when they really don't know. Because they're not the people who actually know the secrets. They're one or two hops out, and they're passing along things they think they know. We not only have no obligation to correct that, we can't. Because if we start calling reporters and saying, hey, this thing you said about this new aircraft we've developed, that's inaccurate, actually. It's got 2 engines. We just can't do that because we'll give information to our adversaries that way, and it's very, very frustrating, but we can't start down that road. Now, when it's unclassified information, if a reporter misreports the contents of a bill that's being debated in Congress or a policy, we can call them and say, hey, you ought to read it more carefully. You missed this or missed that. We cannot do that with classified information. Very, very frustrating because I've read a whole lot of stuff, especially in the last 2 months, that's just wrong, but I can't say which is wrong, and I can't say it to those reporters.
Mr. Comey, if you could help us on this issue, I would greatly appreciate it, because what happens is that you come into a classified briefing with us, and you tell us perhaps something that is absolutely false. It really shouldn't be classified because you're telling us it's not true. But yet we can't go tell it's not true because you told us in a classified setting. There's a way that we can at least have some exchange as to what's not true, so that the American people don't listen to false stories in the Washington Post and the New York Times that we all know are not true. That would be helpful. You could think about how you could help us.
I'd love to invent that machine, but we can't, because where do you stop that on that slope?
Well, false is false.
Because then, when I don't call the New York Times and say you got that one wrong, bingo, they got that one right. So it's just an enormous, complicated endeavor for us. Have to stay clear entirely.
I think it's going to be one last question. So we all read in the press that Vice President Pence publicly denied that General Flynn discussed sanctions with Russia. I'm assuming that you saw those news reports. Did the FBI take any action in response to the Vice President's statement?
I can't comment on that, Mr. Chairman.
Comey, the New York Times reported on February 14th, Flynn was interviewed by FBI personnel. Is that correct?
I can't comment on that, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Comey, I do not have any additional questions, but I thank you both for your participation. And again, I thank the Chairman of the Ranking Member for the bipartisan aspect of this investigation. Goes back. Dr. Winstrup is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. I appreciate your endurance in this effort today. One question: how long has Russia and the Soviet Union been interfering or attempting to interfere with our election process?
In the report we've previously talked about, we have seen this kind of behavior to some degree, attempting to influence outcomes for decades.
Going back to the Soviet.
Right, not to the same level necessarily, but the basic trend has been there.
So I'm curious also about what triggers a counterintelligence investigation of a government official. And in some ways, I'm asking for myself. For example, last week I spoke at an event on foreign policy with Atlantic Council. Unbeknownst to me, the Iraqi ambassador to the United States was there. He comes up to me afterwards, introduces himself, and says he'd like to meet with me at some time. Okay, so this isn't a theoretical. This is real, and this is why I'm asking this. Will I be in trouble or under investigation if I meet with him?
This is the slope I try to avoid going down with Mr. Turner, Dr. Wenstrup. I don't think I should be answering hypotheticals. The question is...
It's not a hypothetical because I'm asking you in advance because I want to know if I can meet with him and be under investigation or not. And I don't think that's an unrealistic question. This is real. This is right now.
I get that. The FBI does not give advisory opinions. So if you're asking me about your particular case,
So you'll tell me afterwards.
no, I'll never tell you.
Well, you might. Somebody might tell the press. Right? And that's where I'm going next because I want to know what can I discuss? What am I allowed to discuss? What triggers the investigation is really what we're trying to get in general. Maybe not with the Iraqi ambassador, but what about with the Russian ambassador? What are my obligations? Do I need to advise someone that I'm meeting with them? Do I have to discuss the agenda before I meet with them? Just so we're clear. I mean, this is really what it's coming down to. It's a lot about what we're talking about. So I don't think it's unnecessary or ridiculous for me to ask. So in intelligence reporting, if the identity of a U.S. official is disseminated to those on an as-needed basis or those that need to know basis, does that generally lead to a counterintelligence investigation of that individual? So in general, if a U.S. official is in this report and it's disseminated, does that lead to an investigation of the individual?
Not in general, not as a rule, no. It would depend upon lots of other circumstances.
Next, I want to go to the article from February 14th, which I believe we're all familiar with. You may not be able to answer any, but the article cites 4 current and former American officials. Do you know the identity of those 4 officials?
I'm not going to comment on an article.
Okay. Well, it's not necessarily on the article, but okay. Do you know for a fact that the 4 current and former American officials provided information for the story?
I'll give you the same answer.
Okay. With or without an investigation going on, has anyone told you that they know who leaked the information or who leaked any information on Russian involvement in the U.S. elections or Russian involvement with the Trump election team?
I'm not going to comment on that.
Is it possible that the New York Times misrepresented its sources for this February 14th article? Possible.
I can't comment on that.
Is it possible that the New York Times was misled by individuals claiming to be current or former American officials?
I'll give you the same answer, Dr. Wenstrup.
Can I ask why you can't comment on that?
Well, yeah, I think a number of reasons. I'm not confirming that the information in that article is accurate or inaccurate. I'm not going to get in the business that we talked about earlier.
Okay. Is it, then let me ask you this.
There's other reasons.
Sure.
I'm also not going to confirm whether we're investigating things. So if I start talking about what I know about a particular article, I run the risk of stepping on both of those landmines.
I guess one more question before time is up. We'll come back. But I am curious. Is it possible, nothing to do with this article, is it possible that a so-called source to a media outlet may actually be a Russian advocate? Nothing to do with this story, per se. Just, is it possible that a Russian surrogate could actually be the source that a newspaper is relying on?
In general, sure, somebody could always be pretending to be something they're not.
Thank you, and I yield back at this time.
Yields back to Mr. Schiff's recognized for 15.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, just a couple follow-up questions, and I'll pass it to Mr. Quigley for the purpose of entering something into the record. Mr. Director,
Chairman, can I ask you for estimated time? I'm not made of steel, so I might need to take a quick break.
Would you like to do that now?
If you can, I didn't know how much longer you plan to go.
Well, I think we want to keep going until the members have asked all their questions.
Just a quick rest stop?
Yeah, so we'll break for about 10 minutes.
That's plenty.
I was gonna say, I said back there, those guys gotta be, especially this cold that makes
Yeah.
What was the hearing?
you said something and he said back